are leading the World Cup standings. So sit back, get ready for some exciting action. Double the sliders, double the fun here in the doubles competition. First up, a pair of teenagers from the Ukraine competing for just the second time ever on the World Cup. Vadym Mykyievych and Bohdan Babura. The top man, Mykyievych, 16, and the bottom man, just 15 years old.
Definitely a young team here. Really, they're just looking for some solid performances as they're building on their experience on the World Cup tour.
Well, we've said it a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it bears repeating, especially right now, that many of the young athletes are taking part in the World Cup this year simply because due to the pandemic, there is no Junior World Cup.
Whoa.
And they're sliding their way on the upper part of this track.
That they are. That's not a common mistake we see on this track. So I wonder if they have enough edge going on. And they're over off of 11, just like that.
First crash we've seen this weekend in any competition. At least, the men earlier today in doubles. Now they do a nice recovery to get back onto the sled. Will they get a finish time? I think they will, right?
I think they will. It is a little bit of an uphill through the Kreisel here, but they have that nice straightaway to gain some speed. So they will be back for a second run.
Mykyievych and Babura. And as I mentioned, first crash today, Emily, but there actually were quite a few crashes during training, all three disciplines.
There were. I mean, like you said, it's not the fastest track, but it is quite technical. The transitions are really tight. They just came up off the end of 11 there, and there's nowhere to go but over. But with these tight transitions, it's very easy to get behind and then have everything catch up with you, and it's just the physics of the sport.
Well, early going here, run number 1 out of 2 in the doubles luge competition. If you have insights, questions, or comments, by all means, get in touch with us on Twitter at Luge Announcer. One word, at Luge Announcer, and then by email, if you want to go that route, luge.announcer@gmail.com. Our next competitors from Romania, Turea and Motzca. And there's an interesting quote about that speed. Emily, it comes from a former teammate of yours, I believe, Dan Joy, who says Oberhof is not known for its speed, but rather its technical design. But for the sliders, it feels as if they're going 80 miles per hour.
I can see that because, if you compare it to a track like Park City, Utah, Park City has much higher speeds, but the curves are so much longer and more open that it doesn't feel as if you're going very fast. So it probably feels like you're going the same speed, even though there's probably a 10-mile-per-hour difference.
Romanians with a huge advantage over Ukraine here, but they're not without their issues as well.
Another
and they go
flip.
over.
Carbon copy right off the end of 11. It's a very common issue here, especially with doubles. Their center of gravity is that much higher. So it's just, if they're not on line there, it's very easy to just tip off the end.
Well, we've learned that time and time again on any track. It's an entirely different proposition, singles and doubles. Winterberg is a great example of that, where it's always an adventure on the lower labyrinth down there. And we have seen virtually every team, including the top teams in doubles, crash this year. Ager, Benniken have had crashes, Vendel and Alt, and that you can't say that about the Geisenbergers and Locks of the world.
Right, no, that's a great point. I think when you bring in two people on one sled, there's so many variables going on, but I think the biggest one is that center of gravity. It's just that much easier to tip over. And from everyone, from if this is your first World Cup versus if you're a seasoned veteran like some of the others we've seen, but this sled in particular just had way too much of a loop going in through 11 and just came out very early, back up on the end and over.
I think that was a German media person, thousandth of a second out of the podium at the moment. So expect a lot of drama here in run number 2. We kick things off with the young Ukrainian team, Mykyievych and Babura. And when I say young, I am talking 15 and 16 years old. They had a bit of an adventure in run number 1, Emily.
They did. That's an understatement for these guys. They had a lot of big mistakes, basically from top to bottom. So really early entrance in a start curve, but for them, they really are just gaining experience and hopefully can clean up some of the mistakes that they had in the first run.
Doubles run, or all World Cup luge for that matter, 2 heats, combined time competition, and they have the same issue as they had in run number 1, but a much quicker recovery.
Right. I mean, that they had a late entrance into 7, a big skid. There's a start that actually enters the curve there, so there's a lot of room, and they're over. Oh, almost. Never mind. Now
and over again. 3 times the charm. At the top, in the middle,
man.
and at the bottom, and they're going to struggle to get a finish time here. They're back on the sled. The finish line is just around this corner, so they get there, although the outrun will be a bit of a challenge.
Right, and that's tough. I mean, hopefully they'll. It's a tough spot to be stuck at.
And they made it.
They did. Man, I mean, all of that started in curve 7, but here's where they started to go over. They came down way too early in 12, back up on the end, and then right off of 13.
Wow.
That's just how it goes sometimes. That was a really rough run. But like you said, they're so young.
Yeah, we may see them here in Oberhof 20 years from now.
We could.
Just swallow that for a second. Okay, comments, questions, welcome by way of Twitter or email. And Detlef is watching today from London, one of 80-plus countries tuning in live today. And he has a number of different questions, but the one I'll point to, with the new women's doubles discipline coming next year for the World Cup, do we expect that the women's doubles will be starting at the same start area as the men's doubles?
I don't know the answer to that, actually. I think there's a lot of questions with the women's doubles field, how that's going to look like, and I don't know the answer yet. So it will be definitely exciting to find out.
Well, Detlef was actually gunning for some controversy here, because if that's the case, then he wants to know, and he quotes Summer Britcher here, why then do women's singles, men and women, start at different places in singles, as we see another sled come down?
I am also a big proponent of that. I think that it's ridiculous that it is 2021 and we're not allowed to start at the same start height as the men. I mean, even if we go into the same curve, they have a bigger ramp than we do. So, I don't know. I think
Detlef says it's discrimination, and that bears thinking about. So, and Summer had the great point that, this would be really easy as long as you just start everyone when they're young at the same place.
Absolutely. And it needs to start from that. I think you have to start from the younger sliders and work your way up to it, because from the young age now, the men have trained from higher heights than the women have, and that's just the design of the program. But there, as a youth, when men go from a youth to a junior slider, that's a big leap for them, and there's a lot of bruises, there's a lot of nervous sliders at the top of the hill, but that's a part of learning.
Sure. Well, these two are okay, Turea and Motzca from Romania, the first of 2 Romanian teams. And